Hey everyone, just thought that I'd go through and do my update on my graphical roadmap. Basically, I just take this, if you've never seen it on Reddit, and sort of do a combination of the timelines and just lay it out in a slightly, actually I could just pull it over and show you. So I've got this here, and then I show it like this. So things that are 100% are a bar all the way across, and then it's essentially this information just sort of laid out in a way that's, I think, a little more easier to read, but it works for some people, doesn't work for others, but it's what I've done for a few years now, so I'll go ahead and work through it here. I think what I'll do is actually, rather than go through each and every single one of these, I'll find ones that I think are particularly interesting, like they're a good deliverable that I think will impact the game in a way, or they're interesting to me personally, being a merchant man, or there's been a significant change on it. Either it's added a lot more time or some time has dropped, and I'll just do little cuts each time I do that. But I was thinking before I did that, usually after I add up the numbers, I'll go in and I'll look at the roadmap roundup just to make sure that I haven't missed something obvious, because sometimes they'll sneak something in here and I'll be like, wait a minute, they added what? And then I'll go back to the release view and realize that there's like an extra line, like they had Idris B in there, and I didn't pick it up because I just saw Idris and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, we're same thing, we've done that one ages ago. I've never done the little time stamps on YouTube, so this will be a little bit of a learning experience for me. Actually, this whole thing is basically just for practice anyway, but I thought that might be fun. So I'll go ahead and I'll read off the notable changes, which is usually where the most interesting, meaty part of the roadmap roundup is. I'll just read this off. If you want to skip over that, there are other people that probably have better voices and do a better job of it, dive in a little bit more. I'm just going to read it as it is, so if that sounds good, just go ahead and listen along. Otherwise, you can just skip along in the timeline to when I start talking about the actual roadmap itself and the changes I'm seeing. So okay, let's get started. Notable changes for May 25th, 2022. As we've explained in great detail in our latest letter from the chairman last week, we're going to update Release View this week to reflect the rollout of key technologies in 2022 as we continue on the road to Alpha 4.0. Huge step. First, you'll notice that the 3.18 column has been adjusted to now arrive in Q3 2022. We're aiming to include with the release of Alpha 3.18 the implementation of Persistent Entity Streaming, PES. Guys, stay away from the acronyms. A core technology that allows for all dynamic objects in Star Citizen to persist across servers and play sessions. A fundamental change to how state is recorded in Persistent Universe is going to have a lot of edge cases and issues we have not come across yet or foreseen. If you get a chance, go ahead and listen to some of those content creators that are reading off Chris's letter, Chris Roberts' letter, because it goes into a lot of detail on this. Nubifier has a quick rundown of it that kind of covers the highlights. A lot of edge cases and issues that we have not come across yet or foreseen. Because of this, we are going to be approaching 3.18 differently than our previous releases. Good. As we are anticipating that 3.18 will require a much longer time in Evocati PTU testing phase than our previous releases. Good thought. The goal will be to get 2 to 3 months of testing on Alpha 3.18 in the PTU for an Alpha 3.18 release to live in late Q3, which would be probably, if they're saying late Q3, think like September, even as far as November. Wouldn't be surprised. However, there's still plenty of content on the way in the meantime. This will be released on the current Alpha 3.17 branch in the 3.17.2 update, which is targeting late June. Cool. These features will appear on the release view in the existing 3.17 column, currently marked as tentative until their final reviews are complete. As a reminder, a column encapsulates any incremental patches within that same period, within that same column. For example, the 3.17 column lists all content coming within that patch cycle, including 3.17.0, 3.17.1, 3.17.2, etc. Once 3.17.2 is released, testing on 3.18 will commence shortly after. The 3.17 features listed below, save for the first one, are all targeting this Q2 release. Additionally, there will be an Alpha 3.19 update at the end of Q4, with similar testing approaching as 3.18 for the initial release of server meshing, the Pyro system, and more in Alpha 4.0. Therefore, you will see the 3.19 column has been updated to release in Q4 2022. Please let us know if you have any questions on the new release cadence, and be sure to check out the letter from the chairman in more details. And I've actually been suggesting that CIG should move to 3 releases a year rather than 4, just to kind of account for the fact that December and January tend to kind of be a wash anyway. So them moving to 3 releases in a year rather than 4, I am totally good with that. I hope people don't have a big blowback to that, because it makes a lot of sense, and it's better for the devs and better for us as the players to let these things bake a little while longer and hammer out as many bugs as they can. And I feel like the extra time will be beneficial to everyone's mental health. Then we just kind of have the release view down here. Illegal delivery missions, that's a new one. Drake Mule, of course, we're going to know about in a couple days, but it's been leaked all over the place. Planetary navigation, that's a very cool one. That's a big one that I'll get into. Derelict Reclaimer, they've been talking about this one on the shows a lot. Looks like it's really come along, should be really cool. Hopefully points of interest aren't just, because of this planetary navigation, won't just be dead points that you land and loot. Hopefully they'll have combinations of cities, or maybe not cities, but little towns and little trading posts. It'd be nice to get kind of a variety of things rather than just a ship crashed here. Siege of Orison, so you might or might not have seen leaks about that. That's the Nine Tails coming down to Orison and taking over those platforms, and you have to procedurally take them back. Or if you're a baddie, you can work with the Nine Tails to repel people from taking them back. Persistent entity streaming is a huge one. Progress tracker. They added the mule, which will be a straight to drivable, not straight to flyable. Anvil Legionnaire, that's interesting. So more than just the content, they're actually going to start making it. So let's take a quick look at that roadmap and see what's going on. I'm curious when the Legionnaire is dropping, because that'll be kind of an indication of when they're going to be dropping. Yeah, so it's not in here yet, and this one, of course, is the mule. So you're not getting it anytime soon. Got it. So it's gone over the progress tracker, and let's get going here. Okay, so here we are on the progress tracker. I like to put it at 1 quarter. The default is 2 quarters. This line is where we are in the current time. So we're Q2 2022. Technically it ends right over here at week 13. And this is because Q1 ran long. So this is kind of what they're talking about, is that these quarters won't really apply anymore. And they're probably going to be having Q3 is going to be releasing way over here in Q4. So quarters don't really mean anything anymore, which again, I'm fine with, because I feel like they've needed to move to a 3-patch schedule anyway. So along these, I try to run this on a more or less annual basis. So anything that wrapped more than a month back or so in Q4 of 2021, I don't include on my list, or it would just be this huge list of things that were completed a year or more ago. So I feel that this is a little bit more true to life. Not that CIG hangs off of my my graphical roadmap, but for me, it kind of keeps a more accurate current tab of how they're doing. So let's go ahead and go on down the list. So Aussie Auto Station, or Aki Auto, however you say it, that's the first one that was on the list, but it was wrapped late last year. I always kind of like to look at these because, especially on the Squadron 42 ones, now that they're kind of going back and polishing, just because it's 100% completed doesn't mean they're not going to come back to it and do polish. So you might see something that was wrapped months ago. All of a sudden we'll have another line on there. So I always kind of like to check on them. So let's head on down the list here. So we've got Actor Status 2 for both of them. They haven't started work on this one yet. Yeah, this doesn't even start until the end of the year, which would make sense because you need the AI working, and in order to get the AI working, you need server meshing and that planetary nav mesh. So it's one of those knock-on effects that once you start getting the big ticket things done, you can move on and finish the other things. So at this point, I'm going to just kind of go through. So we've got the additional Stanton Lagrange points. So this was Microtech only had I think it only had the L1 and L2 Lagrange point stations, so now it's going to add the L4, L5, L6. Are there 6? Let's see. It kind of forms a peace sign when you do it right with Lagrange points. But that one, surprisingly, was not on my previous list, so I'm going to add it here. That was 60 weeks, so over a year of work. Pretty cool they got it done, though. So that'll be another one that it'll be added and it'll already be complete. So win-win. Let's go down. So the next group is AI. Again, I kind of want to glance at the ones that are up here. Just sometimes they sneak something in and I don't catch it until 1 or 2 months later. I'm like, damn it, they're almost done with that. So we've got the AI arcade machines. Let's see, are we still at 19 weeks? Yep, still 19 weeks. So we're roughly halfway through that one. Oh, you see, they do this sometimes too, where they'll scoot things. And I'm not sure if that is just corrections on the back end or what. So that one's only got like a couple weeks left, and then we'll start seeing NPCs T-posing in front of arcade machines, I guess. So AI dancing, I believe that one's been done for a while. Landing improvements, ground vehicles. See if they've done, yeah, that one's one of the older ones. Like I said, I like to check. There's some that I don't have on my list anymore that I just like to make sure. Landing improvements, so we just saw that one on Inside Star Citizen. Yeah, not Star Citizen Live. I think it was Inside Star Citizen. So 32 weeks. Yep, no changes on that one. That one's done. Heading on down. Navigation links. This is also kind of a cool one. We're almost finished with this one. There's 42 weeks. So we're at 41 and a half. That one will wrap by the end of the week. That one's kind of cool because the AI will be able to start climbing ladders and doing vaulting and stuff like that. So once the AI stops acting so derpy, you might see them actually diving over cover, rolling over cover. So it could be kind of cool. Unarmed combat. These are the ones that I want to check and see if they grew a little bit. So nope, still 64 weeks. So we're good there. And the usable system, so this is where they can go and grab Actually, let's just read the description here. Improving in the implementation of existing usable system to optimize the memory usage and improve the performance when querying usable data at routine. That is very wordy, but I think it's basically allowing the AI to look around and grab stuff that it needs without busting up the servers with a bunch of requests. So again, these two are going to be wrapping soon. And you can see that they have a lot of this AI tech is kind of tied together and wrapping up soon, which is good because it means when server meshing comes in, the AI is going to go from kind of a joke to something a little more SEAL Team 6, which if you've ever jumped on a new or fresh server, that's usually what you get. So animatable gunner helmet. This one's kind of a joke to me because they've finished it about 5 or 6 times, and this is a prime example of one that they just kind of keep coming back to and keep coming back to and keep coming back to and polishing and polishing and polishing. So I don't know what this is. I mean, obviously it's a helmet for a gunner, but whether that means that's the one that they had back in the near the Kickstarter days that was all animated and would close up, likely, but I don't know. They've never talked about it, but it's been on the roadmap for ages, and it looks like they're finally wrapping it up again. So color me dubious. I'll believe it when I see it. It's about 95% or about 94% done. Anvil Legionnaire. So this is going to be interesting because they have now that they're adding this one in, they're going to be dropping one of the unannounced ships, and this one will take its place. And so let's see when they're thinking of actually doing the work on this. Yeah, so not until next year. So bear in mind that even though this is ending in week 13 of quarter 4 22, with all of these ships, just remember that this line, they haven't started work. I mean, this is still months out. So that line is a dev saying, somebody will say, hey, how long will it take you to finish this thing? And they're kind of like, I don't know, 6 weeks. And then they get their hands on it. They're kind of like, oh, you know, it needs this animation, this lighting, and we need these damage states, and we kind of want it to look this way as opposed to that way. And it draws out. And interestingly, one of the theories I had and a lot of people had was that the Legionnaire, one of the reasons they're pushing it out without really a means to board a ship, was that it would be used in Squadron 42. But if you look right here, it's only being used in the PU, so apparently not. They just felt this was the right time to drop it. I don't know. Okay, so the counting's done. So on the Legionnaire, it's another one of those where, again, I talked about this under the vehicle matrix, sort of judging how big a ship is based on how many weeks it takes. So this is another one where it's listed as a duration of 59 weeks. But if you look at the actual time they worked on it, they might actually be adjusting now. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, that's definitely not 59. So the sprint is predicted to be 59 weeks. But if you're to count up all of these, you're probably looking at 20 to 30. So their planned sprint isn't 59 weeks. They're just including the time, including all of these gaps. So they're including this time right here in the sprint. It's not actually 59 weeks. They're just counting the time from start to planned finish, which is way down here. So 59 weeks would make it up in like constellation size, and this is a small ship, so it's not going to be that big. And if you actually look at the time based on the teams, it's more in line with that smaller ship. So good example of that, to always make sure that you're checking the individual teams that are working on it. So you look at this, it just looks like this gigantic ship that they're spending all this time working on. You hit that drop down, it becomes a little more obvious what's actually going on. So moving on, the AR and map marker system rework. That one is a big one. If you don't like the way the star map works, this is the one you should be paying attention to. Only an 11-week sprint, which is interesting. We're a little over halfway through. So, I mean, this one's going to be wrapping pretty soon. This could be one of those little ones that they kind of drop in on the sly. They don't always tell us when they're adding stuff. Sometimes they just kind of let us find it for ourselves. Okay, so this is an interesting one. So the SRV, which was actually in the it was in the show yesterday. The one that I said was a tugboat for the RSI day. Argo and Consolidated Outlands and Origin had their ships too, and one of the ships they had was the Argo SRV. Looks like they are actually working on the ship itself now, which is interesting. 35 weeks, so yeah, mid-sized ship. Once again, just remember that even though it's ending here, it does not mean that you are getting it in week 13 of quarter 4. It means that this sprint is planned to end there. It always stretches out a couple weeks after that, and then the downstream teams have to do it. So realistically, you're probably looking at late quarter 1 of next year for the SRV. But by then we should have working tractor beams, so that's a good one. So here we're at the Atlas. I'm trying to remember what this one is. Add functionality to the hybrid for what will become the Atlas component service of the replication layer. Atlas functionality splits the game up into multiple manageable regions known as territories, which are then provided to the replicant functions dedicated game services servers. Okay, so this is a server meshing thing and is a really big deal. So this is what's going to allow for permanence. So they are done with that, which is good. So I'll be honest, normally I'm a little skeptical of the timelines that come out of CIG. I mean, it's kind of their job to be a little bit rosy. Management will always kind of do that just to push their devs along. So you can usually add a week or two to anything, but honestly, this timeline for 4.0 at the end of the year, it's looking good, people. I'll be honest. I'll kind of point out the things that I think are relevant to server meshing, like Atlas there, but they're kind of wrapping up a lot of the server meshing things now, which is a good sign if you're a fan of this project. If you're Derek Smart, probably not so much. Because, I mean, according to him, this game has only got 90 days. Let's see, audio to animation toolset is still just rolling right along. Tend not to be too specific's the wrong word, but until things start getting into like the last few weeks, close counts, just because I'm well aware that they could, during the process of developing and creating these things, it's gonna stretch out a bit. So moving on, my baby. So here's the Banu Merchantman. Backpacks are done. So we had a jump in the number of weeks as the downstream teams were added, and just as I predicted, the VFX team has added more time. I would assume, so that's vehicle feature team. I would assume VFX is also going to jump in near the end too. So once again, near the end of quarter 4. It might jump with or drop with 4.0. It'd be a nice little surprise to kind of throw in there and have the big trader ship that plies the deep dark waters of space drop at the same time they drop Pyro. But we'll see. No promises on that. Right now it looks like it's wrapping near the end of the year, so again, add a few weeks. I'd say quarter 1, maybe the 0.1 patch of quarter 1 be a safe bet. We might get it sooner, but safe bet. Bounty Hunter, here's one. So for those of you looking for new game loops, this one has stayed largely on target throughout its dev cycle. So they are getting more accurate in their times. Before you'd see something and it would say 40 weeks and you go, okay, so it's actually 100, and it would be 100. But this time it looks like the teams are getting a little bit better at predicting what their schedules will be. Again, kind of hitting near the end of the year. Fill interiors of various buildings. Okay, now that is cool. That could, so what that's going to do is, I would assume it's going to open up a lot more players. Like, you're going to start getting buildings rather than just being basically a textured box that you might be able to land on top of. You might actually start being able to go inside them, which would be a huge boon for not Area 18, ArcPort. If you could start going into some of those buildings, not all of them, obviously, but would add a lot of gameplay to those areas. Okay, moving on. Cargo system refactor. This is a huge one. So if you're a trader like I am, that is a big deal. That's basically where everything's going to turn. You can sort of tell they've got a bunch of teams on this. It's complicated. It runs 84 weeks. I mean, they've been plugging away at it for 2 years. Cave archetypes. This one's cool. They've talked about it on Inside Star Citizen a couple times. Looks like it's come along. It's pretty. With these chapters, it's kind of interesting because they were completely finished with them last year. And again, this is kind of a lesson in what these sprints are actually showing versus what people think they're showing. Is these are just, they're showing the work that's been done. It doesn't necessarily mean all of the work has been done. So now that they're coming through and they're adding polish, so I mean, you can see all the different teams that are in here working on this now. That when they originally had their run of, I think it was 40 weeks, it was just because they hadn't started rolling all these teams in. So mostly what I'm doing here, but I mean, again, it looks like they're hitting another end of a sprint here. Now with Chris Roberts also being big into movies and directing and stuff like that, he's going to keep polishing this. Squadron 42 has to not only be a good game that people play, but something that absolutely revolutionizes gaming. So he is going to polish this thing and roll it out when it's perfect, because he saw what happened to Cyberpunk, which, I mean, I did a playthrough of and I loved, but I waited until they hammered all the bugs out, which took them about a year. Squadron 42 can't do that. If they do that, they will be raked over the coals. So I am going to go ahead and skip ahead, because the Squadron 42 things, we don't know what's actually happening to them. Just if I see like a big jump, I'll mention it, but they just kind of chug along and we're not totally sure what they're doing, other than Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, and Chapter 3 appears to be a short one because it was finished months ago. And so yeah, see you in a couple. Okay, so we're past all the chapters. Character attachment volumes is an old one. Character creator, this is one that they wrapped during the last one. It had just finished, and this one is just for Squadron 42, but I keep hoping against hope that they're actually going to have a knock-on effect and we'll get a better character creator for the PU, because as amusing as it is to have Ace Ventura hair, it would be nice to have a few more choices in our character creation. Man, it would even be nice to kind of have different body types. Not that I don't mind having an Adonis body, but it just, the verse at the moment seems, and I've suggested this otherwhere in other places, but having all of our characters the same height and the same build psychologically makes you think that it's just not realistic. It's kind of like not having kids around. Like I'm fine with kids. I'm kind of ambivalent on them, but when they're present in a game, even if they're invincible children, like I think in Cyberpunk you can't actually hurt children. Like if you pull a gun, it'll do the thing where it'll aim and then it'll put the gun down, like it won't let you hurt children. I'm fine with that. But just having old people and children running around in a game break up, it's sort of like having, imagine Unreal Engine with a forest that was just trees. Just very tall trees, all the same height everywhere. If you didn't have bushes, if you didn't have saplings and stuff like that, it just doesn't look like a real forest. When you have a group of people that all have the exact same height and build, I'll put it this way, with this game's focus on fidelity and realism, that really stands out to me. So Charge Drain, this is kind of a cool one. This will be another one of those that's subtle, that when it comes in, it will completely and absolutely change the game. So this will be one of the things you won't have. Yeah, okay, this is definitely the same thing. This is one of those things where your multi-tool won't have just a forever charge of being able to tractor beam things around and you never have to worry about. You're going to be changing those batteries out constantly, to the point where if you need to move that box from this side of the hangar to that side of the hangar, you'll use the multi-tool. If you've got a job where you're going to be moving 50 boxes, you're going to get the industrial sized big one or a vehicle to do it. You're not going to be using that little thing because you'll be switching out batteries constantly. So Charge Drain, that's going to matter. So let's roll on down. So here we go. This is another thing. You can sort of see that they're, like I was saying earlier, a lot of their AI things are kind of wrapping up right around now. And I noticed this a few months ago, and I was expecting them to kind of add more time on the end of some of these, but so far it looks like they're actually hitting their mark pretty well. So yeah, when server meshing hits, when 4.0 hits, the NPCs should start kind of hitting that sweet spot that CR was aiming for in his kind of dream pitch, where he was saying, if we do it right, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between a player and AI. Now, of course, I don't think that they'll be busting open the Turing test, because if you're a bounty hunter and you're hunting lol boobs 6969420, pretty safe bet that's probably a player rather than Chet Browington, who isn't. But as far as how they act and walk around and stuff like that, might start to become a little bit harder, rather than just looking for the person that's standing on chairs. So a bunch of these are already done. Data core deserializer. Let's see what this is. C++ star service that uses normal game tech to read the data core data, whether that be in binary format or loose files, and exposes it to Diffusion API. Sounds like back-end stuff. Let's see, what's the team that's working on it? System services. So that kind of sounds like a tool that's not really, I don't think that's related to server meshing. Again, I am not a programmer, so I'd probably have to run that one by night to kind of translate that. So here's the derelict spaceships that they were talking about in the roadmap roundup, and we're about pushing close to 70% on that one, so that ain't bad. DGH or DGS crash recovery. So this is more if a server dies on you, this will pick it up and save the information so that, like, you log out on a ship, or if it dies while you're in a ship, then you'll appear back in the same thing. So this is all server meshing and using the, I think the replication layer. Let's see, let me look at it. Yeah, replication layer, there you go. Yeah, so both of these are related to each other, obviously. You can tell by the name. All right, moving on. Docking ship to ship. So this one was on the roadmap for a little while. Usually when they remove something from the deliverables view, I'll leave it on the roadmap, on my roadmap, for at least a couple weeks, just in case, because I've seen sometimes I don't know why it drops off of there. I'm assuming it has something to do with the way they run Jira. Like they pull it off the roadmap just while they try to figure out a sprint or something. So again, this one is 98 weeks. We're about 70.5 weeks through that, but you can see it's another one of those that it's not actually 99 weeks. They're just not going to be working on it again. Like this, the vehicle feature team can't take on the work until late Q4 because they've got other obligations. So again, this is kind of the knock-on effect thing where they're working on something now. They're telling their manager, once we hit December, we'll have a break in the action. We can focus on that. And they're negotiations, so usual stuff. So let's go on down. So this is kind of a cool little one. Door, airlocks, light panels, UI. It's basically just going through and cleaning up all the buttons so that they can use building blocks, so that they can make builder specific UI and stuff like that. It'll be really cool, and it's one of those things that you probably don't notice until it changes, and then you're gonna be like, wow, this is so much better than it was. How did I ever live before? And there you go, 4-week sprint. And let's see, so that was Squadron 42 UI feature team, but not a PU feature team. I'm guessing that's just one of those that they're doing it for Squadron 42 and they'll push it out to the PU ships at the same time. Drake Corsair, so no one cares about this ship. Kidding, of course. This is one that a lot of people are really looking forward to, kind of like a upgun version of the Constellation. We're over 80% on it though, so we're coming along. Drake Mule, that's a new one. One that we all knew was coming, but added in here. I'm curious how long it took, because there was one of the unannounced ships that I was pretty sure was the Drake Mule. 50 weeks. Yeah, that's it. So I think I guessed right on that one. Okay, moving on down. We got the Drake Vulture, which I don't think they've added any time to. Oh, wait. No, they didn't. So we're still on target with that one. That's good, because it's supposed to be dropping in 318. So this close to the end. Vehicle experience team, VFX team, props. Yeah, that's looking like a pretty solid drop date. So fans of scavenging or salvaging, Vulture is looking like it's on target. That's a good sign. Moving on. All right, so here we've got dynamic population. This is another interesting one, and another one that is related to AI. And again, wrapping up before Q3. So yeah, they get that server meshing working. AI is going to be a different animal. It's been a joke up to this point. It's not going to be a joke anymore. Okay, ecosystem enhancement. They talked about this one briefly, and I'm kind of breaking my rule about not talking about every single one of these, but there's a lot of cool stuff on this roadmap. They've talked about this one briefly on Inside Star Citizen, where the plants will make sense for their environment. The animals that live in that environment will make sense. I'm assuming this will also be the thing that they were talking about briefly, where it's not going to be the sort of Star Wars style of planets where this is the ocean planet, this is the ice planet, and so on. I mean, they want a different level of fidelity in this game. So you might actually have equatorial bands, tropical bands, Arctic bands, so on. So I think that's partially what this is. 35-week sprint, and it's a solid one. It's not one where they're taking a break in there. So that's a decently long sprint. So we'll see if they can pull it off. It'd be cool. Okay, so here's a big one. EVA Tier 2. EVA is one that's just been jacked for ages. I don't think they've ever really had a good EVA model. Maybe back in the 2.6 days, it wasn't terrible. But one of the reasons they haven't been working on it again is because all of this was planned. So no reason to go in and tweak things and fix things when you know you're going to rip it all up and go with a whole new system. So that happens a lot too. So problem with an alpha project is you're along for the ride, and sometimes it's a bumpy ride. So you don't like being an unpaid tester. Sometimes it's best just to say, you know, I'm going to check back with this game in a year. Hey, they wrapped up the fire extinguisher. How are they doing on fire hazard? Getting real close, people. That should make you nervous, because I'm sensing they might sneak fire in on us too, although I think they would probably need to have like pressure gradients and have the rim system up and working. All right, moving on. Foliage shader is almost done. Just makes cool vegetation, which is kind of nice. I mean, foliage already looks pretty good, but I could see them wanting to keep up with, I think it's Unreal Engine 5 is the newest one. Looks pretty impressive, so maybe they're trying to bridge that gap. All right, moving on. So here's a good one if you all are, if any of you are fans of surveying, sort of scouting, not science, but exploration. Any exploration fans out there? And anyone that likes combat too, I guess. FPS radar and scanning, again, is another one that they've kind of needed to tackle before. And you can tell 79 weeks, pretty big deal. We're almost there, people. So 318 could be a really, really, really interesting patch. Just put it that way. I don't think they'll be sneaking any of this stuff into 317 too, but if you're wondering why they want to have such a long Evocati and PTU cycle, just look at some of the tech that's dropping, and we're only in the Fs. Speaking of which, there's other things here. I want to talk about Gainy. It's one that gets me every time. I'll get there in a second. All right, so Gainy is another one of those. Odin 1's Foreigner Moon. Okay, so before, I want to say they didn't really have a good description in here. And so for a while, I thought Gainy was a person, and they kept, like, it would have 2 weeks of work on it, and they'd be like, okay, it's done. And I was like, cool. Then they'd bring it back, and it'd be like 30 weeks of work, and I'd be like, what the hell is this thing? And so finally here we have it. It's actually a moon, so it's probably that moon that was in the vertical slice that you got to fly down through all of the trash in order to land on it, which I'm sure people that are more versed in the lore than I am are probably going, well, yeah, no shit. But here we are. I didn't know it, now I do. Moving on. Gen 12 render should interest a few people. Let's see, we are... Let's see... they did add... Nope, still 75 weeks, so we're good on that one too. So again, the Gen 12 renderer, right there. It's coming along. And then keep in mind, this is just tier 1. Okay, moving on. Oh, okay, hang on. One that I do want to talk about. Sidness mining drone. So, I have 2 vehicles in the game that are on my must-have list that we have not gotten in the PU yet, that are probably either finished or near finished, or we know they're finished. One of them is the Sidness mining drone. So if you ever get a chance, look up Star Citizen Spider Miner on YouTube and look at that thing, and that's what the Sidness mining drone is, and it is amazing. It is really, really cool, and that was nearly 10 years ago, so it makes my pants tight, people, I'm not gonna lie. So that, and then I really, really, really want a Titan combat suit. Moving on. Hacking tier 0. Big one here. That's another... I think originally they're just planning on having hacking be kind of a thing you do. Like, again, kind of like Cyberpunk, it's a means to an end. Given the amount of time they're spending on it and the complexity of it, it's starting to look like it might be its own game loop. So you might have people in your org or players coming in that are just hackers, that is their game loop, that you bring them along to crack into other things. You might have people that are ship thieves, that their whole bag, they may not be good pilots, but they can break into that ship. And then you're going to have people that are counter hackers that are trying to keep them out. So might be reading way too much into that, so take that with a grain of salt, as always, on hopium and conjecture, me or any content provider or content creator, but could be really, really cool. It seems like they're putting a lot of thought and effort into it, and with somebody with like Tony Z in the mix and their sort of all-star squad of devs, they could come up with something a little bit more complex than the Pac-Man version we saw, or picking random numbers kind of the deal. All right, moving on. Infiltrate and defend missions. Again, these are just kind of another mission in the game. Could be pretty cool. Not really my bag, but a lot of people like that kind of gameplay. Just see Call of Duty. So yeah, I'm all for them implementing more gameplay, varied gameplay, bring in more people, all for it. Moving on. Okay, here we are with jump points and jump point spacescaping. Again, jump points are looking pretty good. Again, just given the complexity of jump points, moving through them, I'm assuming one of these is the narrative team, vehicle feature, VFX. So the reason these guys are involved is because you're going to actually have to navigate those wormholes, which is interesting. But I would assume they're going to have more downstream teams in it down here, so expect that to stretch out. But again, even if it stretches out another 10 weeks or so, it's still landing in their window for 4.0. So again, 4.0 is looking pretty good, people. It's looking like they're largely staying on target. And again, I can be a little critical on them with that. Moving on. Real quick, we hit the halfway point on ladders, a little over halfway. So that'll be pretty cool. You'll be able to climb and shoot while you're on a ladder, which is kind of cool, or dodge out of the way. Really sounds like they're going to have some Indiana Jones moments in Squadron 42, so look forward to that. Okay, life support tier 0. So this is the one that I was talking about earlier with fire coming in. In order to have fire working, you actually have to have an atmosphere for that fire to propagate into. At least the way that they're planning to do it. It's not just going to be a sprite that, you know, add 1+1 to this square every however many seconds. It's actually kind of flowing across. If it hits different materials, it'll react to it because CIG. But life support, this one actually includes the room system, I believe. Implementing the first iteration of onboard life support systems in ships, which entails a ship component that generates air when turned on, and management of said life support component within the vehicle loadout manager. So I don't think it's an accident that this is dropping. Ooh, okay. So this one will have to be in before fire will really be a thing. So expect life support for 4.0, not for 3.18 if I had to guess. Moving on. Okay, long-term persistent enhancements. Here's another one that is server meshing related, or I guess persistent related, which is related to the servers because it's storing it in that replicant layer so that you don't lose stuff. So again, this is the Chris Roberts coffee cup example here. So this is the persistent tech team. So there you go. Started work. It's going to run 8 weeks. About a quarter of the way through. So once again, a lot of cool stuff landing near the end of the year. So 3.18 and 4.0 will be pretty damn cool. Okay, here we are, Lorville Seascape. You can see there's another one with little gaps in there just as teams become available, they can work on stuff. Lorville was the first LZ we had, so yeah, it needs a little bit of updating. It doesn't look bad now, but I think this combined with the buildings that you can actually move around in, going to be a pretty cool combination. They're roughly halfway through this one. Let's see, how far are we through this? Their planned sprint, yeah, we're a little under halfway on this one of their planned sprint. But again, you can see that this one hasn't even started work yet, so it could grow or shrink depending on how long it takes. It never shrinks. Don't make that dirty. Okay, moving on. Okay, so this is an interesting one. This is kind of what I mean when I say that things kind of drop in and out. So mag stripping and refill had a 103-week sprint, and they were 63 weeks into it. So over halfway, but now it says 21 weeks, and I believe it's way out here. Let me see, or maybe they said it was done. Yeah, I'm not seeing it there at all. This might be one of those where, again, drag through, come on, let go. So they're saying it's done, and they're saying they finished it last time, but the fact that they kind of dropped that 102-week sprint on there and they were working on it, and then they just kind of dropped that and they said, no, we finished back then, kind of makes me think they're going to open that up and start working on it again. But I'm going to go ahead and move it now that it's been 2 cycles of this. I am going to go ahead and adopt what they're going with on that one. Just if they're saying it's 21-week sprint and they finished it, okay. The fact that we haven't seen it in the game yet, expect more work on that. Moving on down, mail tier 2. Kind of badly needed in the game. If memory serves, they actually picked up a couple guys from Assassin's Creed, or at least one guy from Assassin's Creed. That might just be a rumor, or speculation. Maybe I dreamed it. But if they did, climbing needs help. Like, I don't know if you've ever gotten stuck in a cave and where the kind of bird poop is or the lichen is, where it's those yellow strips. In theory, that's where you can grab on and climb up. But, I mean, you may try to climb up 20 times and it ignores you every time, and then you just happen to turn like 1 degree to the left or the right, or move a little bit to the left or the right, and all of a sudden you're up fine. My suggestion on that before they drop this on the roadmap was just have it be as an action you could implement with the F key, with the inner thought, in addition to just being able to space jump. So if you knew the space jump trick, you just do that. But otherwise, you could look at the ledge and it would say climb, and you would just climb. But if they're improving mantle, good, better solution. I would rather we be able to climb, maybe not everything like you can in Assassin's Creed, but at least have more options to climb things rather than just the occasional one level thing that looks like a block that is completely artificial. So hopefully that's the start of that. Again, really short sprint, so we'll see what happens with it. But again, 318, gonna be a cool patch. Map and radar system rework, another really cool one, another one that's wrapping pretty soon. Let's see, we are only a couple months out on that one. Yeah, so I mean, here's the end. That should be a pretty accurate timeline. It might go another week or two, but that's probably pretty accurate when we get this close. Especially since this is one that they have to nail for Squadron 42. My guess would be that they're aiming for a release date on Squadron 42 pretty soon. They're going to be dropping it to sort of say, not they're going to be dropping Squadron 42, but they're going to be dropping the release date. So they're going to say, look for Squadron 42 in the winter of 2023. But they will not do that until they are pretty damn sure that that is going to be the day they're going to hit. Okay, let's keep going. All right, here's another big one. This is like, this is a lot like the radar and the scanning and EVA, just something that's kind of, I wouldn't say it's a disaster, but it's been in bad need of an update for ages, and we all knew this was coming when they started doing building blocks. The MFDs were largely a reason why. That's the one that will allow them to do things that are custom between manufacturers. They can move things around really easily. It takes up less memory. You'll be able to save states and stuff like that, I would assume. So like if you always have this one MFD, that's your comms MFD, and each time you get into that ship, you have to reset that to your comms MFD so it's in the right place. This might be the thing that takes care of it. At the very least, it will make it look better, and more custom and more professional. So it worked when the game was back in like 2.6 and 3.0, but now it's starting to look a lot dated. So there we go. We'll see. Another big mover and shaker in the verse, literally. Kind of rolling into the end of its cycle. This one, again, I'm thinking is pretty accurate. I've said before, but this time I think we're actually getting the whole C in 318, so look forward to that. Whole D, these are both just concept passes, so no, they are not building the actual whole D in 5 weeks or whatever that is, 7 weeks. This is the vehicle concept team. They're just pulling it up to the same standard as the whole C. So here's another big UI one, the Mobiglass rework. So the Mobiglass has been kind of both a boon and a bane of people's existence for as long as it's been around. It's cool, it's useful, it's ubiquitous to the game, but man is it clunky. And now they're going to be implementing building blocks, which again will make it a bit faster, a bit easier to use. You might be able to customize your icons. If you ever get a chance, Google some of the concepts that they did of the mobiGlas before they rolled it out. Really, really cool stuff, and I really wish they'd go that direction rather than the direction they did. But again, 318 people, I'm telling you, it's gonna be monumental if they start shoving all of this stuff in, which the extended PTU and Evocati phase, I think they're planning to. All right, moving on. Okay, so this one, if you're a techie, correct me on this. I think this actually is related to server meshing. It's related to the pointer, basically calling up the name on it. Yeah, persistent text. So this is more related to the whole Chris Roberts coffee cup thing. Just everything will have a long string of numbers and letters that'll define what it is, what direction it's facing, what state it's in, where its exact location is in the entire verse, which will be interesting when they start implementing planetary orbits. Moving on. So work's just started on the ocean shader, which is pretty cool. I'm going to be curious with energy conservation. I was wondering if they're going to start adding water effects, like you move into the water and ripples are created, or actual waves or something like that. But I think this is just the shader itself. So this is the texture making the water actually appear realistic, as opposed to something like Sea of Thieves or even Assassin's Creed Black Flag or something like that, where you have the big rolling waves. Probably a little ways out from that. I'd assume that would be called like water tech tier 1 or 0 or something like that. But pop on right down here so that I don't have to stop talking. Origin 600i, gold standard. For those of you that have this ship, pretty cool. We're over 3/4 of the way through. Again, there's a tiny sprint at the end. Expect that to stretch out a little bit, but this is the one where we're going to be getting a medical bay and the Explorer version. And hopefully they're going to take out the ballroom that exists for for the crew. There's just so much wasted space on this ship, and I get what they were going for with it, but the 600i needs some help. What the concept was and what they ended up with are two completely different things. It's just a mess inside, and that's what this is largely addressing. So we'll see what they do with it. They said that they were going to be showing us some concepts soon, but that was a few months back and we haven't seen anything, so I don't know. Hopefully we see something soon. Certainly be curious what they've done with it. X1, that's the other bike. That was the one that I was talking about. And this was one of the ones that I used as a measuring stick for ship sizes. A little space bike for Origin. Kind of cool they finished work on it. Who knows when we'll actually see it. But it could drop at any time. It looks like they've finished it. I'm not seeing any downstream teams in here, so it's probably going to be one of those where it's going to have an 88-week sprint, because they actually have the downstream teams work on it months down the line when they're ready to release it. Moving on. All right, just a quick note on these: the Outpost theme, or Outpost Homestead and Outpost theme variants. So in theory, these are going to be the locations on Pyro, but there's no reason why you wouldn't have Outpost, Independent, and Outlaw in, say, Hurston or even Microtech. Hurston in particular kind of strikes me as like a Wild West and would have a fair number of people trying to escape from that corporation. I always thought that Hurston would be an ideal place for like a debtor's prison. They're that kind of company, but again, these two are kind of Pyro related, and Outpost theme variants is a long ways off. So again, probably 4.0. Gonna drop with that. So late Q1, Q2 next year. Moving on. Oh, wait, not moving on. Persistent hangers. This is a huge one. So persistent hangers, in my opinion, is probably one of those things they're going to have to implement before they implement the cargo refactor. I could be wrong about that, but part of the cargo refactor, I would assume. Actually, yeah, it says it right here. So work that grants players the ability to have their own persistent hangers. This will also bring changes to the cargo gameplay loop by allowing players to pack their grids manually. So what will happen is you'll have this big hangar. You can unload your cargo ship and just shove all this cargo in a corner, and it'll stay in that corner indefinitely. You won't have timers saying, we need to despawn your ship because somebody needs to use it. It's going to be your hangar. You'll kind of shunt it off so it'll be its own thing so that other people can take off and land in that hangar, even though it's going to be a different one. But so basically your hangar will work kind of the way elevators do now, is that I'm assuming it'll be a container that'll kind of shift off into another reality when it needs to while you're working in it. And then when you're ready to take off, it'll move that container into the place where the hangar opens and you'll be able to take off. So it'll be seamless for you and anyone observing it, but what's happening on the back end is big and important. But the issue with the cargo is you'll be able to offload your cargo. You'll be able to move cargo around. You might have something really valuable that you don't want to sell yet, so you can dump it in your hangar for the meantime. Weapons, ammunition, components, all be there in your persistent hangar. So cool stuff. Coming soon. Ish. Moving on. Oh, persistent streaming meshing. Here we go. So this is kind of, everything happens in the P's for some reason. So persistent streaming just went over 70%, so we're looking good there. Personal inventory is about to wrap. Let's see. Physical damage and breakability is another one that's dropping soon. Let me double check that and make sure that's still true. Yeah, so this one's wrapping pretty soon. So again, a lot of very, very cool things are coming very soon. Not in 317.2. Don't look for them there. 318 with the long Evocati and PTU. A lot of these things could kind of be shoved in. So this is why it's always good to look at these deliverables, because sometimes you get a little sense for some of the things they're not putting on the release view. Just again, as a caveat, just because something is 100% complete does not mean it is definitely coming in the next patch, just that it could. I want to put that out there. Moving on. All right, so here's player reflection. Not a lot to say about that. You've played other games. You know what player reflection is. We're about halfway through it. It's gonna be mirrors. You can look at yourself in the mirror. Always interesting to see how games pull this off, because essentially what you're doing is you're asking the computer to, or the program to, redraw everything that's behind you in front of you, including your character. So if what's behind you is a very complex scene, it's doubling all those triangles. So how they pull that off, you typically see it in single player games and not multiplayer games for that reason, because if somebody looks in a mirror, they just doubled the poly count. It's going to be interesting. We'll see how they pull it off. Should be cool. Okay, so here we go. So here's Pyro system plan and mission setup. They're kind of moving into the end game on this one. Again, it's it's a couple months out. So doesn't mean 4.0 is dropping tomorrow, but at this stage, this is kind of the gray area where this deadline isn't safe at this point. I would say when we hit about here, if they're still saying week 9 of quarter 3, then that's probably a fairly accurate number. At this point, this is a guess, this is a guess, don't count on it, but they're pretty far along. Like the Planet content team just started work a couple weeks ago. It's going to take them some time. Quantum simulation, that's another cool one. That's all the NPCs. So here's an interesting one. They added almost 20 weeks to it. So this one was getting pretty close to finished. I'm guessing Tony Z said, let's let it bake a little bit more time if we're going to have a longer sprint for 3.18. And CR was probably like, yeah, when we launch AI, let's make it good. So guessing that's what's going on there. So 20 more weeks added to that one, roughly. Rastar, this one's interesting for anyone that has a Pioneer or wants to build your own bases on planets. The sprint on this one hasn't moved. So, I mean, it's been at 89 weeks for a long time. So, Plant Tech team's got it going on, y'all. They're pretty good at predicting their time. Again, end dates out here a ways. When it gets to be about here, if it's still 89 weeks, pretty accurate. Otherwise, got more time. So, moving on. So here's another server meshing thing. So this is the replication layer. Moves the code that handling and assigning and enforcing only authority into the replication layer. Okay. No idea what it is. I know it's related to server meshing. It's got like a week left, so yay. Here's one that just wrapped. So rest stop hanger replacements. This is basically just creating more hangers for the rest stops. Pretty much exactly what it sounds like. Just kind of diversify that a little bit more. I think there's going to be bigger hangers. They're trying to move away from pads. I think they've just kind of realized that as long as they have pads, there will be pad rammers, no matter what they do to discourage that. So the more hangers they have, the better. And I have a tendency to agree. If you remove temptation, it is less likely to happen. Okay, so this is a good example of what I'm talking about with ships and how the end dates, things can stretch out a little bit at the end. We have the Scorpius right now. I flew around in mine yesterday and it seemed fine, right? But it's still got another few weeks of development here. So what they're doing now is they're kind of seeing how we handle it and what we do with it and how we break the game with it and how we balance it. So the Scorpius versus the Hurricane, I'm sure, is one that they are probably taking a very close look at, since those two ships are supposed to be balanced off against each other. So during the next few weeks, the US vehicle content team is going to be looking at this and tweaking it. So even though you have it and you could fly it right now, don't do the whole CIG baited and switched me thing, because now that the ship is in game and we're using it, they get to see what actual use cases are and not what they predicted in their head. And we as players are a real unpredictable lot. Oh, and right up here is the RSI Orion. Again, just like the whole D, this is the concept art team. This is not the team that's actually building it, even though it says implementing and balancing RSI's platform as a flight-ready vehicle. They're not building the Orion in 7 weeks. So don't look at this and say, we're getting the Orion right here. We aren't. They're just planning out how they're going to make it. Salvage Tier 0, again, bunch of teams, but it's rolling into the end game. So Salvage, along with the Vulture, looks like it's on target. Hopefully they can make the reclaimer relevant too, and at least give its laser something to do. I don't think the claw probably isn't going to come into play until they do the gold standard pass on it, and at this point the reclaimer is kind of an old ship, so it's going to be getting its pass eventually. I think the reclaimer was definitely in Squadron 42, so it actually might be getting a gold pass, although I don't think it's a ship that your player actually goes on to, so the internals aren't as important, but having that big claw working would definitely be something to see as you were flying around. Moving on. Okay, here's an interesting one for you guys that have dreams of running your Hammerhead solo, which you definitely shouldn't. But this is the ship CPU, which will have open slots. I'm assuming they'll have different tiers of ship CPU, like grade D to grade A. And grade A will have more slots that you can put blades into, and those blades are what will enable you to remote control turrets or have turrets that are automatic or NPC computer controlled. This is what will allow you to do that. Actually, not NPC controlled. This will be the computer of your ship controlling it. You won't have to pay anyone. You'll just have the computer. That's what this is. 93 weeks, but again, is one of those with a huge gap as teams work on it. So you got that team jumping in there. And then again, you got this team jumping in at the end of the game. This is them saying, this is the vehicle feature team saying, yeah, around November, December, we're going to have X amount of time to work on it, slot it in there. We'll see what actually happens. If we're getting here and it's still there, good sign. Okay, so here's another good example of what I was saying by sometimes CIG moves things around. So they have sliding here, which is supposed to take 14 weeks. Previously, it was also supposed to take 14 weeks, but they were a week and a half in. So chances are the actor feature team had to get pulled off and do something else. So they just put this on ice. Now it's going to be back here at the edge of the year, so it got punted. So I am knocking that one back down to 0, even though a week and a half has been done. By the time they get around to it again, they're going to have different tools, different ways of thinking, different priorities. It's going to change, so that week and a half of work is probably, I wouldn't say wasted time, but it's not like they're just going to pick it back up where they left off, so I'm zeroing that one out. Space Mines is kind of cool. Me as a Nautilus owner, the mine layer, that's good to see. I mean, I'm assuming what we're going to get is mines as unpredictable obstacles that'll occasionally pop up in your path or protect certain areas of interest in space first, and then they'll roll out the Nautilus at some later date. But anyway, Space Mines, there you go. Okay, for those of you that like to play Star Barbie, like me, Stanton Fashion Clothing. I think this is just character art, so it's not concept art, so I think they are actually making the outfits. So we might be getting a wide variety of clothes in 3.17.2. They've been rolling out more clothes. Even if you look at the current patch, there's a fair amount of new clothing that's just kind of hiding in there. They sneak usually like a shirt or a pair of pants or some sort of shoes in pretty much every patch, but looks like they're going to go a little bit more, and they're going to actually have gendered clothing, so get to see what that looks like. Moving on. All right, here we go. Subsumption. This is more AI NPC work. Subsumption is actually, let's just read it. Recreating the Subsumption editor's functionality inside the engine to allow easier setup and debugging Subsumption logic for the designers. So if I recall right, Subsumption was the AI's ability to do jobs and stick to schedules and stuff like that. I think that's what it is. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what it was. It's been a while since I looked into Subsumption. Moving on. Theaters of War. There we go. Keeps popping up. Not totally sure if I'm allowed to talk about it or not, but the one time I played it, it was really fun. One of the games that I was world ranked in back when I really enjoyed first-person shooters was a game called Joint Operations, and I played that game for years and just loved it. But Theaters of War reminds me a lot of Joint Operations in the best kind of way. So I know it gets a lot of crap, but if they could actually launch it, I really hope they do. I think it's a fun game mode. At my advanced stage, I probably wouldn't be playing it much, but there are a number of people that like games like that. And again, the broader appeal this game has, the longer its longevity will be, and that is what we want. If you're sitting through this, you want that. Okay, and now we get into the fun part. So this is the sort of what is it really game that we play with the unannounced features or deliverables. So this one for ages has had me curious what the hell it is, because it's been 100% complete for, man, I'd say probably at least half a year. But look at all the teams that are involved in this. Mocap, facial features, Eurozone, every single team touched this feature. It ran 23 weeks, which I wouldn't think 23 weeks would be a huge groundbreaking thing, but it's 23 weeks and every single team touched it. So who the hell knows? A martial arts class or something? I don't know. Maybe they'd... Oh, who knows? It's weird. I really want to know what that one is. Moving on. We got 12 weeks of vehicle concept that is unannounced. That is this one. You're out of there. Okay, because one of these is going to be the Mule and one of it's going to be the Legionnaire. 43 weeks. Again, this is one that's been done for a while. It's unannounced content. Let me make sure I got the right one. Yeah, it's unannounced content, but I think this one has the landing zone team. So again, there's things in here. It's got the vehicle content teams. So what is it? This one's Squadron 42 and the EU. Bunch of vehicles. Weapons content team, sandbox, who knows? 11 weeks though, and again, it's been done for a long while. Moving on down, unannounced tech for 5 weeks. We have less knowledge of what that is. I think that one is actually Planet Tech team. So storms or something, who knows? It only ran 5 weeks, and again, it's been done for a while, so again, no idea. LCA is location concept art, so this is just concept art for a location. There you go. See, aren't you glad you come here for information? Again, that's one that's been done for ages. No idea. What would they be secretive about with that? Narrative, unannounced content, 26 weeks, been done for a long time. Who can say? Squadron 42, so these have been done for a while. Again, no clue what they are. None of them were particularly long sprints. They didn't involve that many teams, feature teams, so you can get some sense. Again, landing zone team, 9 weeks, and been done for ages, so probably something in Pyro, but who knows? 23 weeks for unannounced tech, and it's the game services team, so maybe something org related. Kind of hard to say. Like, they've been saying that they wanted to add org tools for a long time. Maybe that's the start of the org tools, but again, it's been done forever. Unannounced vehicle that's running 46 weeks, and it looks like it's rolling up to flight ready. This one might be a flight ready ship for Alien Week. 46 weeks would make it like a mid-sized ship, like smaller than a Connie, larger than a Titan, in that range. It doesn't look like there's any downstream teams on this yet, but if it's this close, then I don't know why they're not adding them in, but they've almost certainly been in there. They might add a couple more weeks on there, but my guess would be a straight to flyable in Alien Week, maybe. Let's see, so that one is done, and this one's another narrative feature that only ran 2 weeks. Again, been done for ages, so who knows what it is. 14 weeks, this one just wrapped. And that one is just a concept. A lot of people are speculating that there's going to be a surprise ship dropped in Invictus, like another one, like an Anvil ship. I'm not sure why the content creators that are saying that are so confident, but they're more plugged into CIG, like they have actual friends at CIG, so somebody might have blabbed to them, or they might have looked at the files and know there's something else out there. If so, maybe there is another concept ship coming for Invictus at the end of the show, or for Drake, but who knows. Moving on, 24 weeks for a concept ship. I don't think this one started yet. No, this one starts in a couple weeks. So, again, this one looks like it's going to be a straight to flyable. Coming down here, we got one for 31 weeks. So that's got to be this one. This one's about halfway through its sprint, so we actually should be getting close. 31 weeks, small to medium-sized ship. We're far enough out. I would expect this to stretch a little bit more, but this is probably a concept ship, a straight to flyable ship that's going to drop for 318, if I had to guess. But then again, I mean, you can see how many ships that we got, that concepts that are sitting at 100% right now, that they could just drop them at any time. Even straight to flyable. So they're just waiting for the right patch to drop them in. So let's keep going. 24 weeks for an announced vehicle. So I think, so we killed off 2 of these. So 2 of the unknown ships that we had. Wait, that's not 70.5, that's 7.5. So 2 of the unannounced ships we had. One was a vehicle concept that the EU and US team worked on, ran 50 weeks. They're just about done with it. So that was apparently the Drake Mule. And then they had, that's interesting. So there was another unannounced ship that was supposed to run 35 weeks, and it was only 3.5 weeks into it. It's no longer here. So one of the comments when I was going through and describing on my It's Not the Polaris post on that video, one of the comments was kind of related to unannounced ships are of course unannounced, because if they were to announce the ship, then it wouldn't be unannounced. So what I think they were saying was that if there's any ship that's on here, it's not a ship we've ever heard of before. And my argument is the Banu Merchantman, until about a year ago, was one of these unannounced ships, which that ship we've known about since 2014. So when they've got, and I'm not saying that's what happened here, but what it could be is that it's a ship that we very much know what that ship is. If they said it was, let's call it the Crucible. Like the Crucible is a highly useful ship. It could totally be possible that they started working on the Crucible and then somewhere in the line, John Crew or someone said, you know, this ship, we've got other priorities in it right now. Let's go ahead and put this one on the back burner. That if it's unannounced ship number 12, no one cares. Like, if I hadn't have just mentioned that a ship got yanked, would you have noticed that there was one less unannounced ship? No, probably not. But if you were the owner of a Crucible and that's the ship that you wanted to have in the game and you saw that it was on there and it was a week and a half in and it had this sprint and they had it all planned out and then they deleted it, you'd know, and you'd be heading right over to Reddit or right over to Spectrum and letting them know about it. So just because these are unannounced doesn't mean they're not ships that we haven't heard the names of before. So underground facilities, let's move on. Happier topic. Right now the underground facilities are very basic. They all look the same, kind of have the same layout and stuff like that. This is going to switch it up a little bit. So underground facilities could be getting pretty cool. We've seen some things a couple years back in, I think it was Star Citizen Live, or back then it might have been Around the Verse, one of those older shows. But they had a guy building out a cave system, and in the cave system he actually added an underground facility, or it might have been the other way around where he had an underground facility and added on a cave. But we could be seeing things like that taking place, and it might be things that are a little bit more not modular but procedural. So I would assume if they have ones that you go in more than once, it would have to be the same way each time, or that would be reality breaking. But yeah, this one's interesting, and we're about 3/4 of the way through, so not a real long ways to go. Again, it'll be dropping before Pyro does, or at least it'll be completed before Pyro is. So once again, 3.18 4.0 gonna be life-changing for this game. All right, moving on. We don't have that far to go. Okay, so there's a funny one with the vending machine with the AI. You saw that they finished that. They finished the utilization too, so now the vending machines will work and the AI can use them soon. Let me see if there's anything. Oh yeah, there's a couple on here that I want to talk about. See you in a couple seconds. Okay, so this is probably the last one I'm going to talk about. Let's see. No, there's a couple further down there, kind of cool. So the visor lens rework, a lot of people I noticed were complaining about the Scorpius because it only had the 2 MFDs. This should help with that because the visor on your helmet will have its own information that will likely take the place of some of those MFDs, at least if they do it right. Those MFDs should really be kind of ancillary information that you don't use constantly like they are now. Maybe, we'll see. But that's what I'm guessing. This one's about a little over halfway through, so should be seeing that one in 3.18.2, I'd be guessing. Maybe 3.17.2, but do not quote me on that. Okay, moving on. All right, last one I'm going to talk about, 0G push-pull. This one's just cool, which is why I like it. They actually dropped it by 2 days on this one, so that's cool. They kind of, not often you see them lower the number of weeks something will take, but that's good to hear. 0G push pull, as opposed to having to use your jets on your when you're going EVA. Again, going back to the whole charge uncharge thing, your EVA suit is going to have fuel. So if you're sitting there just jetting around everywhere in EVA, you're going to run out of fuel and you're just going to be floating in space. If you don't have something to push off of, an object at rest tends to stay at rest. You are going to be stuck in one place until someone comes and picks you up, because it's space. There's nothing to push off of. So what you're going to be doing instead of using those jets all the time is a 0G push and pull. So you're going to be moving through a ship by pushing off the walls. Trying to think if they really did that in The Expanse, but pretty much any budget space movie you've seen, and by budget I mean it has a budget, where they're actually moving around in 0G, it's going to be like that. Like, you're going to be pushing off walls, kicking off of walls, stopping yourself with your hands. You're not going to be using your jets too often. And I would assume one of the things that they'll do is, much like an object at rest tends to stay at rest, an object at motion will tend to stay in motion till acted on by an outside force. So if you're on, make sure you can see it. So if you're on this ship and there's a ship over here and you push off of this ship, what will happen now is you'll go a little distance and then you'll stop. What will happen now, I think, is that you'll just keep traveling at that speed until you hit the other ship. Hopefully that's what it is. It's a little bit more realistic of EVA and 0G, as opposed to this weird thing where you have some sort of friction in space. You wouldn't have that. And that is it, y'all. So thanks for dropping by. Thanks for sitting through this entire thing. Hope it was interesting for you. It's always interesting for me. I'm a data nerd, so I eat this stuff up. Hope you enjoyed it. See me next time.